Very good. So, welcome everyone. This is your mobility and flexibility class. We meet Wednesdays at 9 a.m. Sessions will typically go to about 10:15, maybe 10:30 if we review the lecture a little bit more. But yeah, so in this class, the main idea is to just move your joints and move your joints in every direction that they're made to be moved. So, there's some joints that don't have a lot of range of motion, like the knee joint. The knee is just going to go up and down. If your knee's going left to right, you might be missing some tendons there because it's not supposed to do that. There's limited motion there, but your shoulders come up here, side, behind, across. So, yeah, there's going to be some joints that we do a little bit more work for because they do require a little bit more mobility. So, and the flexibility part would be the stretching. So we'll do some static stretching, which is just kind of holding a stretch. We'll do some isometric work, which is more of like a workout, but not so much. So, for instance, isometric movement would be if you want to strengthen your this right side of your neck instead of attaching a dumbbell to your left side of your face and then just leaning over. You could just place your hand here and apply pressure. There's not much movement going on, but there is force going this way. So that type of workout we will be doing sometimes in here, which is a little bit easier. That's the type of stuff that you'll see like in a rehab program. But yeah, so usually we'll start on the chair. So I'll go over equipment that we'll need, a chair. We'll do a good portion of, we want this to be a nice, relaxed setting. So we'll do a lot of our work from our chair. I'd say about maybe 60 to 70% of our stretches from our chair. We'll do some stretches standing up. And then I know we sometimes may have a challenge getting down on the floor. So we usually move the floor stretches towards the end because I know we might lose a few folks that just can't go up and down on the floor with some of these stretches. So we'll save that towards the end. And yeah, so and when we're on the floor, I usually do advise that we have a yoga mat. If you have and that's just for comfort mainly. So if you have a nice soft surface, you could use a towel. And when we're standing, usually you could use your chair or you could use an umbrella, a long stick, a broomstick. But I do ask that you have a longer, rigid item so we could work on our shoulders. Sometimes we might need like a medium-sized towel to work on our neck and some stretches, but yeah, these are all items that you could find at home. You really don't need to go out of your way. Like our Monday class where you do need some dumbbell equipment, some heavier items. But other than that, that's equipment. That covers equipment. Water. You want water, so you're hydrating. Um, Make sure. I doubt we're gonna be sweating in here, unless we're holding some uncomfortable stretch. I've done some yoga poses in the past that could be pretty taxing and demanding, and you might start sweating a little bit. But we won't be doing anything excruciating, unless it's warm. So. My garage has no insulation, so when it's cold, it's freezing in here, and when it's warm, it's blistering hot in here as well. So, yeah, just keep that in mind. And then, as far as Canvas, so for Canvas, there will be more information in the coming weeks. I was kind of the Monday class has a little bit more technical stuff going on there, so I was prioritizing the modules in that section first, but haven't forgotten about this class. We're going to be having some information on Canvas, and there's going to be information on stretches, on joints, on arthritis, on osteoporosis, anything that involves the joint and the muscles and deteriorating or making them stronger. We'll have that information on Canvas. And again, anything that you see on Canvas, if it looks like a reading. It's not going to take too long. It's probably going to be worthwhile. If there's videos, I'll make sure that I go through them first, that they're worthwhile. I'm not going to have a 20-minute video for you that just talks about the anatomy of the knee joint and maybe the physiology of it too, where it just dives deep into it, where a lot of the information just goes over your head. It's going to be pretty practical stuff. And there'll also be some extra workout videos on Canvas. There'll be some discussions if you wish to participate, and then just good information. I don't want to put stuff that um, you just want to dismiss, but it is not mandatory. All this stuff that's on Canvas, it's not mandatory, so don't feel obligated to do it. But if you do have time, it's maybe the videos while you're cooking or while you're going on a walk, you could just hit play and one thing I did forget to mention is that you folks get credit and won't get dropped if you log in into Canvas. So if you never log in, you guys are obviously logged in through Canvas, but if you never log in, that's when you usually get dropped from a class. So you folks are safe right now, but if I see a lack of attendance for several weeks, like I'll call out Jen. Jen's always here, but if I see Jen disappear for a month without any communication, I might just think that she just doesn't like me and she wants to get dropped from the class. So, but yeah, but it's that usually doesn't happen. We usually have good communication. You'll find my cell phone number on the front page of the Canvas shell. Feel free to text me. I don't have a problem with you texting me. That's probably the quickest way to reach me. If you email me, and there might be a delay up to like a day or two, but if you text me, you'll hear from me probably within like 10 minutes. Um, but other than that, I can't really think of anything else besides at some point, I do ask that, get comfortable, unmute yourself if you have questions, unmute yourself if you want to just chat or talk about food. That's my favorite subject, or traveling. Turn on your camera, and not just so I know that you're not asleep behind the camera there, but also so I could make corrections if you are doing a stretch. Incorrectly, and I could fix that form. And yeah, we just want to see a little bit more participation if you don't mind. And at some point down the line, we might have a guest who just, hi, Carmen. We might have a guest just kind of just observing our class and see how it functions. And when that guest does come, I'll let you folks know. Hopefully, we have a little bit of more interaction and it's not just me on here. So. But with all that being said, do we have any questions? Now's a good time to ask.
Forget YouTube information.
Yes, so great question. Thank you, Carmen. Completely went over my head. So these classes, they're being recorded right now. So I usually just have my screen being recorded. So once that's completed, recorded, uploaded, slightly edited, I don't do too much editing at all. So I usually upload the recording into my YouTube channel. Once that's in the YouTube channel, I get the code from YouTube and then I import that back into Canvas. So if that sounded a lot of like confusing, pretty much just know that if you miss a class, you'll have the recording posted on the front page of Canvas. So you'll see it there. And I'll instead of having all the recordings just stacked and hiding some information, the recordings will just be up there for about a week and then I'll replace it with the most up-to-date recording. And I'll do that. And if you happen to click on the YouTube channel or on the YouTube video, it'll take you to like maybe the YouTube page. And if it does that, you could see my little icon of my YouTube channel and you could subscribe to that. And if you do that, you'll see hundreds of videos from anything from strength and conditioning, from cardio and core, from foam rolling, balance exercises, lower body strengthening. I mean, every class, 95% of the videos or of the sessions that I taught over the last 5 years are on there. So if you want to switch it up a little bit more, or just do an extra workout. Because again, this class, don't expect to burn a bunch of calories. This is going to be very passive and relaxing. But if you want to get a workout in, then I recommend going to the YouTube channel and just selecting one of those workout videos. So they're usually about anywhere between 60 to 70 minutes long. I know some of my early stuff is like 80 to 90 minutes long, but yeah, feel free to navigate to that. And on the front page of Canvas, I also posted the dates where we'll be meeting. This being right smack in the middle of the week on Wednesday, there's really no holidays that land on Wednesday. But for my Monday class, we already have a holiday on Monday, so we're gonna miss the Monday class. And then 2 weeks after, it's like President's Day or something. So, but this class doesn't have too much of that going on. So, whew, yeah. Any other questions? Like I said, now's a good time to review some stuff. Or for my new folks that are brand new to this class, we have any concerns or questions, now's a good time. Diane,
Julio, this is Diane Sanchez.
hi Diane.
Hi. Hey, I went just for FYI, I went onto the Canvas page to sign into the class because
Uh-huh.
I didn't use your email. And when I went in through Canvas to access where it says touch it for the live Zoom, it doesn't go through. So I could only get in through your email link that you have.
So the email link that I sent was just to access Canvas.
Correct.
Right.
But then it lets me get into Zoom. But if you go on straight to Canvas to try and you touch it, it
Yeah.
doesn't go through at all. So just FYI.
Okay. Did anyone
Oh,
else have that problem?
no, I got in through Canvas just fine.
I had a problem last night at my other class getting in, and then when I went back and went back in, it worked. And I got in today.
Okay.
I had
Hey,
no
thank you.
problem.
Okay. Yeah, no, thanks for sharing that, Dan, because sometimes I feel like that happens to one or two folks, and sometimes it's just refreshing Canvas. I know there's been some times where I just don't okay, Jeff, all right, worked for you. Yeah, I mean, most of you that are here, yeah, it had to be through like the link on the front page. But yeah, I know sometimes, I think last like 2 months ago, Canvas worldwide was just like glitching. So that does happen sometimes. But yeah, like I said, Diane, if you want to take down my phone number and text me. What I don't want to do is send out the Zoom link directly via email because if I do that, then you don't get credit because you weren't logged in through Canvas to access that link. And when we're in Canvas and then click on the link, then as long as you navigate it through Canvas, you're getting credited for being logged in as you are right now.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Dan, for sharing.
Well, and also, Julio, isn't logging in through Canvas the only way that, quote unquote, you get credit for the class, for the
Right.
attendance?
Yeah, so that's how we get credit. So about the first 2 weeks of the term, we're pretty much supposed to drop anyone that's not logged in. So I get a report, or I don't get a report, but I have access to see how many hours Debbie spends in here, Josefina, Jan, everyone. It just gives me a little report, and it also tells me the last time. So I've had some students show up the first week of school and then I don't see them again the rest of the term. So it does show me that. So when I do see that, that's when I do the drops. And these classes, are funded, but we also need a minimum attendance or a minimum roster size, which is usually 20. So if at any point, fortunately, my classes have been somewhere between 25 to 35 for the last few years, but I know there's been some other instructors that their classes go under 20 and they pretty much cancel the class because they don't meet that minimum roster size. So, but yeah, good question. Or, yep. Oof. Anything else? Mr. Jeff, I saw you. I got the email that you added to the class last night. Welcome. I got that email after I sent the email, so I'm glad you navigated yourself in here. Um,
Yeah, thanks. I signed up for your Monday class too, so we don't have class this coming Monday.
yeah, we won't. I'll see
Okay.
you in 2 weeks. Yeah, I
Okay.
won't see you this Monday, right? But you could
Okay.
access the modules, and in the modules, there's some workouts already in there. So yeah, there's a little bit more structure on the Monday class right now. So just keep that in mind, but I'll build this class a little bit more. And we had to build it from scratch because yeah, there's just a little bit more requirements going on this term. But any other questions before we start? All right. I went on a run this morning and I probably drank about a gallon of water. So I might be in and out with the bathroom. So let's take like a 2-minute break and then we'll start with our stretches. Okay. So if you want to grab your chair and just get comfy, but we'll start shortly. So be right back.
¿Qué? ¿Qué pasó? Oh, los señores están allá afuera.
All righty. Okay. So I'll continue to talk a little bit more about the chords, but I'll do it as we begin stretching. So have a little bit more breathing room in this class to talk while there's activity going on. On our workout class, I'm usually out of breath, if that. So I do have a fitness tracker. I like tracking how much calories I burn. It's definitely a lot less than my Monday class, but I just like keeping track of, I guess how well I'm treating my body. So we usually start from the head down to our toes, and we try to cover all the joints that we could do from this position. And then we'll go from the standing stretches and then down to the floor. Okay, so, all right. So again, neck joint, head joint has a lot of different radiating movements that we could do with it. So we're going to start just lightly by looking left to right. So just relax, breathing. You could have nice deep breaths if that calms you or is soothing. And with every turn, you might get a little bit more range of motion. So try not to just turn your head without a purpose, but try to reach as far right as you can and as far left. And then also just be mindful if you have an area that's a little bit tender or tight, or we pulled something. Now let's go up and down. So same idea. So bring your chin down to your chest and the back of your head to the upper back. And again, these are gentle. So we're not at a rock concert where we're dropping our head back and forth really hard and fast. We're just here relaxed. Okay, so let's look left and let's just, as far as you could go, hold it there. And with your right hand, just push a little bit on your right side of your chin, your jawline, and then just adding a little bit more stretch. Sometimes if our muscles are a little sore or tight on their own, they can't stretch as much as they really can, or as much range of motion as they really have. So we need a little bit of assistance from our hand to stretch that and relax. Okay. We'll go right, to turn right. And again, apply a little bit of pressure on the left side. Very good. Alright, good. And I usually just kind of like doing, just moving that joint before I continue with the full on stretch. So next one we're gonna do is we're gonna look down, but now instead, obviously we can't make our chin go through our chest, but we could try to bring the back of our head a little bit lower. So what I would advise is kind of lightly grab a hold of the top rear side of your head, and then just allow your elbows to drop gently forward or down. Try not to rotate your shoulders as you're doing this, so your back is fixed, but your head gets a little bit more downwards, allowing your neck to stretch a little bit more. And this is one that when you start, you might not have too much range of motion, but by adding weight from your arms, it's gonna allow maybe maybe a half an inch or an inch more of stretching going on that area. And relax. Again, make sure any stretches that we're doing, if they feel painful or causing discomfort, you could just skip the stretch, okay? All right, let's do some neck circles. So exactly what that sounds like, just gonna go clockwise. And these are very gentle, okay? So I've seen people injure themselves by stretching a little bit too fast. If I tell my son to do this stretch, he'd probably do about 10 revolutions with his head before I get one done. So we don't want to do stuff like that. We will end up with possibly straining your neck. Has anyone strained their neck before? Their upper back? Gentle. Let's do one more. Full circle. And relax. Hopefully that loosen that up. Right, and let's go counterclockwise now. Yeah, I think I've shared that I irritated my lower rear neck, upper back area, and yeah, couldn't turn my head. So anytime I had to look to my right side, I had to rotate my entire trunk. My entire torso had to turn around so I could take a look to my right side. And sometimes that could happen just from sleeping in a funny manner, or with the wrong pillow. You at a hotel and the pillow's a little different from what you have at home. That could cause stuff like that. Very good. All right, we're gonna go ahead and stretch the side of our neck now. So we're gonna fix that by sitting on our left hand. So just put that hand underneath. That's gonna allow this part of the shoulder to stay fixed. This right hand comes over and allow that right elbow to just drop. And again, just get a comfortable stretch there. Yeah, so a little bit of background on me for my new folks that don't know much about me. Been doing these classes at Santa Ana. Let's switch for, yeah, this is my 5-year anniversary this term. I started in January of 2020. So 21, 2. Well, that's 6. I don't know how to count. So yeah, so 6th year. So this is starting my 6th year now. I got my bachelor's in exercise physiology, my master's in kinesiology, and then my minor in nutrition. Relax. Okay, we're gonna do snow angels. So kind of working that area between your shoulders and your neck. So snow angels, just exactly what you would do in the snow on the floor. I coach track and field and cross country at Long Beach City College. Been there for 13 years now. Um, I run myself. I used to focus on just lifting weights for a good while, but now I'm back to running. I took like a 6-year break from prioritizing running, but now I'm back to it. I actually just signed up for a 16-mile race in the Grapevine in Tejon Ranch. So if you ever gone on the 5 freeway north, just past Gorman, if you look on your right side, there's a big hill, and I'll be running up that. I don't know why I just paid $200 to run 16 miles. So I just did that. But yeah, let's go single arm um, shoulder press motion. Okay, so drop that elbow down, and then that hand comes up. So I just did that. So that's my own Christmas gift to myself. And it's gonna be a painful one. But yeah, and then I teach these classes here. Um, this is an 8-week term class. And then I believe after these classes are done in mid-March, we start with our second round of 8-week term classes. So yeah, so we'll have 2 more classes, and they're always during the spring and the fall semester. They are Monday and Wednesdays at 9. Let's switch. And in the summer, very fortunate to hang out a lot more. And in the summer, we meet, I have 6 classes, which is Monday through Saturday. And those are also at 9 a.m. So yeah, so you'll get to see a lot of me in the summer if you join those classes. So, and yeah, and then when I was, so I got my degrees at Chico State. I ran cross country and track up there. And then let's go front raises. So we're going forward right here. Competed up there, had aspirations to be a physical therapist. The physical therapy program became a bit, they changed it. It used to be a master's, and then during that process or that time that I was up there, it changed to a doctorate. And then I just got kind of absorbed by the sport of running a little bit more. And then, yeah, I just kind of decided to change to pursue coaching at the collegiate level. But during that time, I also worked at a physical therapy office. So, I was there for about 6 months. And during that time, I probably learned, let's bring that right arm across. During the time of working at a physical therapy office before I started coaching, I learned a lot, and not just on just working as an aide, but actually it made me consider going back to physical therapy, because if you've ever been to a physical therapy office or dealt with physical therapy, it's such a rewarding environment when let's switch, when you are injured and you feel like you have a pain that's just can't get any better, and it feels terrible, and you could barely walk or you could barely bend over. But then you do, a few weeks of rehab. You actually follow through with the workout prescription, not a prescription that you go to the pharmacy, but an actual prescription that requires more movement, and you see that develop into a healthier lifestyle, and then your body actually moving better. Oh man, I think it's one of the most rewarding careers out there. So So yeah, so I was glad now I'm doing it here. So let's bring that right arm up, drop that hand, and little bit of pressure downwards, stretching out that tricep. So yeah, so a lot of the stuff that we do in here is a lot of stuff that you would do at a physical therapy office as well, if you have to go to that. So switch. So come back, drop that hand. And again, if there's discomfort, you don't have to do these. Okay, we're gonna focus on the back right now. So this is on the cat scratching through the R in the first word there. Cat scratching pose. So for this one, it does become a little bit easier or easier in the range of motion if we are sitting towards the front of the chair. If you're in the far back, it's going to be a little bit more challenging. You won't get the same range of motion. So sit towards the front, separate your knees. There should be a gap enough between your legs where hopefully we could drop down. So we're going to reach up towards the ceiling and then reach, keeping your back straight. Reach all the way down. Once you reach, come back, recover. It does require you to like lean over and bend a bit. So if you feel a little bit lightheaded, just catch your breath. But we'll do about 6 to 8 of these. So again, reach. And down. And we want to be, you know, you don't want to be too fast with these. Nice and controlled motion. You should feel your back stretching, reaching here. Come back. Let's do 2 more. One more. Very good. Awesome. All right, let's take a quick water break. So if you could reach over to your water, just so we're not too parched. Make sure you're hydrating. Most of my runners only hydrate when it's hot. So right now in the winter, they think because it's cold, they don't need to drink water. So yeah, no, gotta drink water all the time. All right, we're gonna do shoulder circles. So you're gonna drop your hands down. You're gonna rotate your shoulders up, forward, down, back. Okay. And again, just kind of make sure those shoulders are going as far forward, as far down, as far back and up as possible. We don't want to just be, just like I always just think about like having WD-40 on your joints. Like if your shoulders are just doing that, you're not really getting the stretch part. You're getting good mobility, I guess, but not really the stretch. All right, and then again, we want to go counterclockwise. Because the last thing we want is joints and muscles just being trained to move in one direction. And then suddenly you're doing a different movement, which requires the joint to work in the direction that it's not used to. And then boom, you pull something, you get a cramp, and then now we're out for, a week or more. All right. Awesome. All right. Let's go ahead, reach up towards the ceiling. Reach up. You're gonna feel your ribs maybe stretching a little bit. Your intercostals, you have little, oh yeah, you guys know, barbecue ribs, that meat in between the ribs, that's your intercostals. So stretching those out a little bit. Lean right. And those intercostals are going to stretch a little bit more. Also your traps, your underarm area. And let's lean left. And relax. All right. All right. The next set of stretches will be for our arms, our biceps and our triceps, and they're not very taxing. These are some of the easier stretches that you could do sitting down in the car. So just opposite shoulder tap. So palms are facing the screen in that starting position. My elbows are staying next to me. I'm not rotating my shoulders. This is not a shoulder stretch. This is a bicep activation stretch. So just here, if you know you're gonna go to the gym and you're gonna do some bicep curls, you might want to do these before you start. Okay, now we're gonna rotate our hands back. Our hands are facing behind us. And then this is more for our triceps. So again, a lot of these stretches just mimic some lifts that we might do at the gym. So this would be like a tricep press down. So if you're at the gym, there's usually a machine that has a cable and a bar, and you would grab the bar and you would press down and come up. Then you would press down, and that's working out your triceps. So just doing the motion of it will stretch your triceps right now. Okay, very good. All right, we're gonna do a little bit more of a complex movement here for our shoulders. So this is gonna be the Arnold press motion. So we're gonna just focus on the rotating part, okay? So I know for the Arnold press, we go here, come out, up, and then this way. So right now what I want you to do is just go from here and then go out and then in. As far back. Almost trying to get your shoulder blades to say hello to each other behind you. One more. Yeah, very good. All right. Gonna follow with that forearm motion. So we're gonna go here and then just bring your fist up and down. Okay. This is one of those movements that we typically don't do for anything. I mean, I really can't imagine an activity that requires this movement. But again, there could be a time where you're in the plane and you're reaching for your bag, that overhead compartment, and it's a little crowded and you got to reach up there a little bit differently and awkwardly. And last thing we want is to get one of those cramps or aches while you're in an awkward position. And relax. All right. There are some stretches that will fatigue you too. So we do a lot of shoulder stretches. So shoulders is probably the one joint muscle group that gets a little bit tired from today's session. So, all right, this is similar to one of the Poliquin stretches or lifts that we do in our other class. So elbows at your side here and lift. And again, there's a machine in the gym too, where there's pads on the outside part of your arms, and it's attached to some weights, and you're lifting here, coming back. Not a fan of that machine. I see it at the gym, but I don't really use it. I like the stretch more. If you go to the gym, just know that you don't have to do every machine out there. There's some machines that I don't like personally. They cause pain or discomfort, so I skip some machines. So does anyone have a machine like that where they just can't do? It just causes issues? Everyone's Superman and Superwoman here. Let's bring that right hand in, elbow in, and bring that fist in and then out. Yeah, the one I can't do would be the face down laying hamstring curls. So you might see people laying on their belly with it's a leg machine and they have the weight or a pad is right above their ankles behind them, and then they have to lift that pad close to their glutes. I don't know how many times I've gotten, I wouldn't say injured, but hurt from doing that lift. My hips just don't like it. Okay, so same thing, left elbow tucked in, and then just rotating that forearm out. And try to bring that forearm as far out as you can. You'll feel that working on your shoulders and your arm right now. All right, very good. All right, we're gonna move down and work on our forearm and our hands a little bit, okay? So just from this position, right hand, allow your right wrist to go just past your knee so that right hand is collapsed. We're gonna add a little bit of pressure, downward pressure with our left hand, but you wanna work with that right hand up. And then, so we're gonna do repetitions. This is more of like a workout stretch. So you should feel your forearm activating, okay? So push down with your left hand and push up with your right. And allow that right hand to climb to like a flat position. And that's one right there. Let's do about 6. And let's try to make each one last about maybe 3 to 5 seconds. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Come down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. One more. Very good. Okay. And that's just for our forearms. So helps with good grip strength. Yeah, just anything if your hands are elevated quite a bit. All right, left hand down, right hand on top. Press down and up. And apply pressure. One more. All right. Very good. All right, we're gonna do some gentle wrist stretches. So just kind of making a light fist and then just wrist go up and down. Does anyone have arthritis on their wrists or on their hands? I think that's pretty common. You can always use the emojis if you don't want to unmute yourself. And then let's go in and out now. Okay. All right, Neelam. Thank you. See you next week. All right. So now we're gonna work on our finger joints, okay? Little tendons on our hand. We're gonna work that. So for this one, we're gonna go ahead and just bring our thumbs in, our fingers in. And then let's try to bring the fingers in without flexing the joints of the fingers. So just keep that each finger straight. So we're doing one finger at a time. And your other fingers are just gonna have the tendency to move along with this neighboring finger. So just keep each finger straight. That's really stretching out, that part of your hand that connects the length of the finger with the palm. Okay, let's do the other hand. Took a first aid and CPR class last week, the 4-hour course. And yeah, think about kind of glad I took it because yeah, I mean, fortunately I haven't dealt with any incidents like that where I had to like use it, but I did forget, some of like the positions. Now we're gonna do the same thing, but now we're gonna do it with bending at each knuckle. Okay, so individually, just bring that finger in towards your palm, but try to bend at each knuckle. But yeah, so anything from an adult to a child to an infant, you got it all covered.
I just did mine last week too. They changed a
Oh.
few things,
Yeah, yeah. So
new rules, not bad. I didn't want to go either.
yeah, that's I think the new one, or at least what I noticed, let's go left, that I never really thought about, or maybe I just forgot, was I think with women, they're talking about the apparel. So they're just saying, well, the instructor, she is saying, well, if I was having a heart attack and this was going on, like I want to make sure I'm in a safe position. So I think the idea was always to like cut the item or the piece of clothing, and it came down to a bra. And it was just about the material of the bra. If it's all like a sports bra, just cut it. But if there's wiring on the bra, then you gotta be careful where you put like the. So it was just
Wire out of the way
yeah, the
for the
wire.
AED.
Right. So yeah, with the patches. So and that's if it was more of like a cardiac arrest. So we did that part. So now we're gonna just start transitioning down to our trunk, our hips, and our legs. Okay, so you're gonna do a gentle trunk rotation. So knees are facing forward. You're gonna use your chair. I usually grab the bottom rest and then the back rest here, and then just gently just turn. You don't want to see discomfort, but just turn here. Just breathe normally. People always ask me, oh, what's the best way to breathe? Uh, to be honest, at this time, whatever way you breathe naturally, that usually tends to be the most efficient, unless you have some sporadic breathing tendencies that are not, I wouldn't say natural, but more, let's switch, are just not like whatever breathing pattern you do naturally, let it breathe through your nose and not through your mouth. That's gonna be usually most effective. Um, so some of my runners sometimes ask me like, Coach, I heard if I tape my mouth and just breathe through my nose, I should be a minute faster. Or if I, you know, cover my mouth or cover my nose and vice versa. So I'm like, just do whatever feels right. Like you don't want to think about like breathing while you're trying to like race a specific time. We're gonna do hip openers. So legs are facing forward, right knee is gonna come out, or right leg. Okay. And when you're in this position, usually when you're relaxed, that knee's gonna collapse down. So just use your hand there so we get a nice stretch. And it helps too if your torso is nice and upright. So yeah, but I think with the CPR, it was kind of like the pressure on the chest. How many do you do before you do like the breathing? And then just the intervals with that. Um, but yeah, I mean, there was a lot of repetition, a lot of repetitive stuff, but I think definitely stuff that, it could save someone's life. So for sure it's worthwhile. They had a lot of snacks for us too, so they took care of us. That switch. I guess they had the class was supposed to be for 25 people and only 6 of us showed up. So yeah, I went home with a lot of those Hawaiian barbecue chips. The luau something, they're really good. I remember we could always, this is just the routine that we do all the time. We're gonna do our piriformis stretch, one of my top 3 stretches. So right heel on that left knee. Okay, this does require a little bit of more range of motion. So I know sometimes we can't get the ankle high enough, so you might just want to like hold it here if you can. But if you're able to, place that right ankle on that left knee and just hold this stretch for about 20 seconds. Yeah, so this is our regular routine, but if anyone at any point just wants me to go straight to like back stretches or something specific, feel free to put it on the chat and we could always start with that too. So I know we've had some days where we go directly to the shoulders or straight to the back or ankle. Let's apply a little bit of downward pressure on that top part of the knee. It's a little bit, you could just push down or you could just rest on it and you might feel that stretch here. So this is a good stretch. If you have some back pain sometimes, that sciatic nerve runs right through that piriformis. So by keeping that piriformis relaxed and not tight, relieves that pressure around that nerve. So could help with that back pain. And then let's bring that right knee up and just hug it. And usually this is where you'll feel it a little bit more here. Anyone sign up for any 5Ks or 10Ks? Carmen probably, or Kathleen. Half marathon.
No, I didn't. I have family here and got distracted with other things.
No upcoming races for you, Carmen?
Not yet. No, later on.
Good.
Maybe for May,
Okay.
for sure.
The OC marathon.
Mm-hmm. We'll see.
Yeah.
I doubt it. But yes, I will. I'm looking forward to the next one.
Yeah.
Well, we did the November one, Ella and I.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that was the last one.
Let's push down. So yeah, so I picked up the trail running. I think I've met with one of my my alumni from a few years ago. And so he is 65, going on 66 this year. And then his buddy, whenever us 3 run together, the 65-year-old calls us the young guys, because his buddy's turning 60 this June. And so I'm running with them, and his buddy who's turning 60, his name's Dan. Let's bring that leg up. Dan's turning 60 in June, and Dan, for his birthday, wants to run 60 miles on 60th birthday.
For that day, just one day?
Just one day.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So I think he's done a few like 50-mile races. Like these 2 guys have been running, for decades, like at least 30 plus years. And I have about 22 years on and off running, but I'd say about good 15 consistently. So they know what they're doing. And so I was asking Dan, all right, so before I get ahead of myself and just start talking and forget what we're doing, let's sit towards the front of our chair, recline back, grab that knee right below the knee, bring it towards your chest, and just lower leg lifts here, okay? So it's a little bit of stretching of that hamstring. And my right knee sounded like popcorn for about 3 of these. So yeah, so Dan's doing 60 miles. So I asked him, I'm like, oh, are you running from here to like, I don't know, Camp Pendleton or like somewhere down towards San Diego? And he's like, no, I'm just gonna find, he's like, I want to do it in a day. So I think his plan is, let's switch. It's to start maybe on his birthday, like at 4 or 5 in the morning. And he's gonna map out a 10-mile route, like a loop. And he's gonna make sure that each 10-mile loop finishes and starts near his house. So he could just go home, do 10 miles, go home, eat something, use the bathroom, hydrate, and then go again. And he's gonna do that 6 different times. So yeah, I'm like, oh, well, maybe I'll do one of those loops with you. I don't know if I'll do all 6, but that's gonna be in the summer. So we'll see how it goes for him. Okay, so now we're gonna do like a leg press motion. So knee comes in and then out, and then kind of circle that down. So you kind of see that extension as my leg drops. I bring my heel in first, and then almost like I'm in a bicycle here. Just one leg at a time. And then let's switch. Yeah, so if you go to the YouTube channel, there's videos and then there's shorts. So I uploaded a short, and in the short you'll see the 2 guys I was just talking about in that video. So pretty fun run this weekend at Strawberry Peak.
But the last video that I saw in Facebook, you were going on like hills or mountain trails.
Yep.
Oh my gosh, how far was that?
I mean, it was fun, but it was also painful.
I believe that.
yeah.
It's rugged.
We're still in this position. We're gonna work on a little bit of more hip range of motion here. So right leg is straight, and then just up and down. Okay. So it was a 15.5-mile run, and in the first 10 miles I'd say the first 8 miles was most of the climbing, and it climbed 2,700 feet. So a lot of hills. And if you saw the video, then the guy you saw running in front of me, that's Dan, who's turning 60 this summer. But yeah, it's really neat. And like I said, let's switch left leg. And these guys have ran everywhere around SoCal, NorCal, and they know, I wouldn't be surprised if they know like 80 to 90% of all the trails in the area. One of them has a cabin just below Mount Wilson. So if you ever go hiking out there, there's some like little cabins in the middle of like the canyons. One of them owns one of those cabins. And yeah, it's pretty neat just to go out there, and you feel like you're in Colorado and you're just an hour from LA. So, or 40 minutes from LA. All right, we're gonna go and focus on the lower legs. So just realize it's 10 o'clock already and we're still in the chair. So really focusing on these. All right, feet are flat, and then just heel raises, activating the calves. If we don't get to the floor stretches or some of the standing, that's okay. But I think we're getting through most of these perfectly, most joints. Yeah, that was a fun run. I'm gonna miss them this weekend because I'm trying to do the Mount Wilson hike, and it's about 15 miles, and I think it takes about the route we're doing about 7 or 8 hours to do that hike. All right, feet are flat, and then now toes. So this should work on your anterior tibialis muscle. So if you put your hands right here in front of your legs, you'll feel that muscle activating. This is one of those that I have my runners that deal with shin splints. So if you've dealt with shin splints before, it's not fun. Usually happens when you have old shoes, or if you're running too much too quickly or walking too much too quickly. And what I mean by that is, let's say, I'm just going to pick on you, Carmen. Let's say Carmen takes 2 months off and she's just super lazy, just watching Netflix hours and hours and doesn't want to do anything. Um, let's go ahead, elevate that right leg, and let's do our ABC. So for this one, we're just going to trace the letters of the alphabet, okay? Working on ankle mobility. So then Carmen decides, all right, I need to get my act together. I need to get back to where I was a year ago, where I was walking an hour at least each day. So what happens is your muscles and your bones aren't as active as they used to be. And pretty much what they're telling you is, what the heck is going on? I can't do this. This is too much work for me right now. Let's back off. And you're like, no, I'm tough. I'm going to keep doing this. So at some point, your body's going to be like, okay, time to stop. I'm going to give you shin splints. Maybe that will tell you to calm down. And yeah, that's usually what your body response does, is it starts stressing, your muscles start getting a little bit tight, your tendons do too. You push yourself too much through that, you might develop a stress fracture in that area. So yeah, so what we were just saying, the anterior tibialis, helps with keeping that part of your legs a little bit more active. And the calf raises too. So gotta just make sure, if you get excited to work out, just be patient and do it at a gradual, steady rate. You don't want to do too much too soon. You're just asking for injuries for that.
What about for arches in your foot?
For arches?
Uh-huh. For stretches.
Yeah. So for arches, so for these, we're about to do that. Diane, I think you've been in my class before, so that's what's coming up. So for these, I would remove your shoes. If you don't have shoes already, great. You could have socks on. So there's gonna be several little things. And then I'll also demonstrate, we'll do a little bit of foam rolling as well for our feet, which is not really with the foam roller, but more with like a golf ball or a softball. Okay. So we're traveling down here. So we're gonna go for our arches now. So plantar fasciitis, have you heard of that, Dan?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so that usually happens when we have tight calves. Calves wrap around the heel, pulls here, or we have shoes that don't have enough support. I'm flat-footed like a duck, so I deal with that sometimes. So to strengthen your arches, what we're gonna do is just claw. So pull your toes towards your heels and do it almost aggressively. Like if you're really trying to like dig your toes into the floor, and I just try to bring them as far back as you can. Okay. Should be doing these. If you're trying to make your arches stronger, I would advise to do these before you even take a step right after you wake up from bed. So especially if you have little micro tears and those are healing overnight. As soon as you take a step and start walking around, those fibers that treated those micro tears could just kind of dissipate as quickly as they were being built overnight. So that's the first one. So the next is the same idea, but without grabbing with your toes. Okay, so this one's gonna be more of like just pulling your metatarsal area. So your metatarsal would be kind of like the area, the bones that are right here, this part of your foot. So we're trying to bring those back towards your heels without pulling or without doing the climb of your toes. So I don't know visually if you could see it, but you could see how my feet, it's a very subtle movement, but pretty much instead of doing this, I'm doing this. Okay, so try to work with that. It's a little bit more challenging because naturally I think we want to claw. But again, we want to just activate those arches. Okay, and then maybe my returners, you may have, this might be the other item that I said you could may need. So next time you're walking around a golf course, try to look on the floor for a golf ball. So if you have a golf ball around, let me see if I do. Oh, yep, I do. Golf ball, or I think I like a lacrosse ball too. But so then I would advise to find one of these, a golf ball. I like a golf ball because it's firm, it's not gonna collapse. I've used lots of items before. A tennis ball might be too soft. I've used a potato before, but then by the end of the class, that potato was smashed. But we're just gonna go ahead and then just kind of roll back and forth. If you're dealing with arch issues like this, and you have a comfy chair at home or a couch, I would have a golf ball near your couch, and then as you're watching TV, just kind of roll back and forth. And then, so yeah, just try to get the entire surface area of your foot. Even if your foot feels great, I feel like 90% of the time there might be an area where it's a little bit tender. Once you find that area that's a little tender, just go right above that area, not directly on that spot, but just right above, and then just push down on that ball. Okay, sometimes the tightness is not in the direct spot, but it's in the area right around it. So once you've done that, just kind of loosen it up a little bit. Now let's go right below that area. You just want to hit those trigger points. Relax. Okay, and then maybe pick one side where it could be a little bit of discomfort. And then, yeah, you could also like roll on that side arch. Okay. All right, let's switch. So we're on our left foot now. That was my stomach, if you guys heard that noise. Oh. Go back and forth. We're gonna take another quick break, like a 2-minute break, and we'll finish off with our shoulder stretches, and then we'll call it. So we'll be done in like the next 10 minutes here. All right, so find that tender spot. And relax. Right. Right above or right to the left. Pressure. Relax. And one more. All right. Awesome. So we're close to being done. Do me a favor and find a broomstick, a broom, an umbrella, a golf club, anything that's long and rigid. And we're gonna finish off with our shoulder stretches. And yeah, we're almost at the finish line for today. So, all right, a quick 2 minutes to go on your scavenger hunt. Broomstick. All right. Almost there. I'll wait till some of my live people with the video cameras come back. All right. Great. we have a coaches meeting in an hour, and it's at a like a food court where everything costs like 3 times more than it should. But I'm starving. Gotta go with my budget-friendly restaurant. So, all right, we're here. Let's go ahead and just begin, just going up and down. See some foam rollers. Awesome. Yep. Feel free to look for a foam roller, just a regular foam roller. You could find some on Amazon. The ones that are about 2.5 feet long or 3 feet long, those are great. Let's go left to right. So try to do these without rotating your torso. We'll use those longer ones in our summer class. I would avoid the foam rollers that have funky designs or are really hard. Sometimes they look like torture devices. You don't want to go with those. Okay, so all right, we're here and we're gonna focus on our left arm. Okay, so right arm, right hand is doing a lot of the pushing. Left arm is just the guide. Okay, so don't really just push with that right hand that's underneath, and just allow that left hand to guide the broom, the foam roller. So we're going straight to our side. Let's go 30 degrees slightly forward. And this is a stretch movements that I do before I do like an upper body workout. Let it be arms, chest, back, shoulders. Let's go 60. So it never hurts to activate the shoulder as long as there's no pain. This is at 60 degrees. My shoulder's always popping. Doesn't hurt, but it just pops. Let's go 90, right in front of you. Let's go back. So again, my left hand is just coming back. If you're not used to this movement, you might have a little bit less range of motion than me. All right, relax a little bit, give your arms a little bit of a break. We're gonna focus on that right arm now. All right, here we go. Ready? So now right hand does the guiding, left hand is doing the pushing. Just getting that shoulder range of motion. All right, let's go 30 degrees forward. Yeah, and if you ever watch my recording, I was gonna ask, this is something new I want to try. If you ever watch the video recordings on YouTube, if you could do me a favor and just comment your initials. You don't have to put on your full name or anything like that, but you know, if you could just like Charisse, if you go on there, just a C and an L, and then I could just kind of cross-reference, see who was that watched the videos, because sometimes I see that it had 8 views, but I have no idea who watched them. And Canvas doesn't tell me that either. It just tells me that someone logged into Canvas. But if you put your initials, that'd be awesome. Let's go 90, right in front. And let's go towards the back. All right, couple more, just relax again. So we just have two more. These are going to be behind the back. Okay. And then this first one is just going to be up and down. So we're here, and then up. And then lift. So this is our last one here. So just lifting back. And that should do it for today. Good job, everyone. Oh, thanks for everyone that stuck around. Appreciate you. A little slightly longer sessions. How are we feeling?
Better. I was very stiff,
Okay,
Me
good.
too. Oh, I needed this.
very stiff.
Oh.
Awesome. That's what I like to hear. All
Now I
right.
can start my routine for the Mondays. Don't
Yeah,
forget
I
to
know, right?
upload the
Jeff, you're feeling
video for
good?
Monday.
Diane? All right. I see lots of thumbs up. Shavana, we're feeling good.
My foot's feeling
Anyone?
better. Thank you.
Does anyone feel worse?
No, actually, this is Shavana. Hello.
Okay.
I actually do have like hip issues and everything. So I've been doing like, yoga and everything. So sometimes sitting too much actually aggravates my hips.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe it's just the weight, the bad posture, definitely bad posture. I know that for sure.
Yeah.
So I'm just hoping to get better with this.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, what some of the like before I run, like my go-to ones, if I could do that performance stretch, I always have to do hip circles, which we didn't do today, but just an exaggerating like hula hoop motion
Huh?
and switch directions, do that. And then also sometimes when it's a hip issue, it could be like tight hamstrings that if you have one hamstring that's tighter than the other, there could be it's not even, so it's one hamstring could be pulling on the hip, so it
Right.
slightly pull. So I also try to stretch my hamstrings, and for that one we'll usually do it, but I just grab my ankles and then just extend here, and I'll
Oh,
do
yeah.
that motion. But sometimes what I practice with running too is I hear with people that have tightness on their back or their hamstrings when they're walking or running, sometimes people just kind of like lean forward and move more with like their legs as like the guiding force, which makes sense. But if you I'm sure most of you have heard of like pelvic floor when you're on the floor, or the pelvic tilt where you just kind of round your hips forward a little bit more. So when you do that, that activates your glutes too. So that takes away some of the pressure from your legs. So just little things that you could practice. But yeah, so hopefully just sometimes it's kind of silly, but you might find one stretch that solves all your problems.
It's like,
It's one of those things just going a little bit off topic, but like one of my clients, his weight loss journey came to a plateau. And when we started focusing on limiting sugar, boom, 50 pounds off. And
wow.
it could just be like one thing that has like such a huge effect. So yeah, hopefully we find something for you and maybe these stretches help you out.
Well, I know like that the happy baby pose, that kind of like when my back is laid flat
Yeah.
has helped. The bridges
Yeah,
also.
there's one. I think it's like I'm bad with yoga poses names, but I think it's the cobra stretch when you're belly down and then you use your hands to like stretch. Like, oh, like my back feels awesome after that. So
That actually works opposite for me because I thought that would help.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So sometimes, yeah,
When I'm flat on my back, that actually helps. When I'm flat on my back and then I lift my legs up,
yeah,
that helps. Like, as if like it's kind of like when you're sitting in a chair but laying down. So your feet are like
okay.
bend at 90. And then I
Yeah.
just pull my hands up a little bit so my back kind of gets flat. So that actually helps.
Yeah, we do something like that. They're called knee drops. So we get in that position and then drop our knees to the side. And I feel like that relaxes my hips too.
Yeah.
But we'll get to those
I'm
next week.
doing everything and seeing what helps.
Yeah, great. I'm glad. Do we have any other questions before we head out? Comments? I'll miss you guys. It'll be a week without you.
No
All right. Well, make sure you're hydrating, stretch, watch the recordings, subscribe to the channel. If you need that workout class on Monday. So remember, we don't meet on Monday. So everyone enjoy the rest of your week, and I'll see you next week.
Sorry, can I ask you one more question?
Sure. Yeah.
Um,
Bye.
so is the class only, is it 9 to 11 or is it usually like about till
It's gonna be like, I'd say like 10:20
Oh,
most of the
perfect.
time. Yeah. So
Like
uh,
wow, 2 hours.
yeah, it's trust me, I attempted when I first started, that's why I said some of the classes were an hour and a half,
Okay.
and I would have people drop off because they have stuff to do, or they're just exhausted, or it was just too long. Me personally, when I do a workout on my own, I usually try to keep it 60 to 80 minutes long. Anything past that, I just feel like, all right, like I'm kind of over it too. And you don't want to walk away from, one of these sessions. I know this for some of you, this might be like your hardest, or Monday might be like your hardest workout of like the week, but you also don't want to like crawl away from like the computer and like just go take a 5 hour nap afterwards. Like
Mhm.
we have things to do after, 10 a.m. So, but I would say about 70 to like 80 minutes long.
Great. Okay.
60
Thank you.
minutes is perfect for me. That's
How
it.
much, Carmen?
60 minutes.
Oh, I thought you said 5.
No.
Bye.
Thank you. See you next Wednesday.
Sounds good. Bye, everyone.
Sounds good. Bye.